Jake Morrison checked his oxygen tank one more time before jumping into the dark water. The ocean at night was different from the daytime dives. Everything felt heavier, darker, and more dangerous. But Jake had been doing this job for 5 years now, and he knew these waters like he knew his own apartment. He worked for the Pacific Marine Research Station, a huge facility that floated on the surface while its legs reached deep into the ocean floor. His job was simple. Check the equipment, make sure nothing was broken, and keep an eye out for anything unusual. Since the aliens came to Earth 2 years ago, unusual had become normal. The Galactic Coalition, they called themselves. Dozens of different species from across the galaxy, all coming to Earth with promises of friendship and technology. They said they wanted to study Earth's oceans because the deep waters held secrets that could help everyone. Jake didn't understand most of it, but they paid well and the work was steady. His helmet lights cut through the darkness as he swam deeper. Fish scattered when the light hit them. Jake smiled inside his mask. No matter how many aliens came to Earth, the fish still acted the same way they always had. He was about 300 feet down when he saw something moving ahead. At first he thought it was a shark or maybe a large fish, but as he got closer he realized it was bigger than that. Much bigger. Jake's heart started beating faster. He reached for his emergency beacon but didn't press it yet. The thing in the water was thrashing around, fighting against something. He swam closer and his lights finally showed him what it was. An alien. One of the wolf creatures that worked for the Coalition. The Lycarians, they were called. Jake had seen them around the station, but never up close. They usually kept to themselves, proud and silent. This one was in trouble. Big trouble. Old fishing nets had wrapped around its body, tangled in its legs and arms. Heavy pieces of metal debris were caught in the nets too, pulling the creature down. The alien's yellow eyes were wide with fear, and its mouth was open, gasping for water the way its species breathed. Jake didn't think. He just moved. His hand hit the emergency beacon as he kicked hard toward the drowning alien. The creature saw him coming and tried to reach out, but the nets held it tight. It was sinking fast, the weight dragging it down into the darkness below. The alien had stopped fighting now. Its movements were getting slower. Jake knew that look. He had seen it before in drowning victims. The creature was running out of time. Jake reached the alien and grabbed onto the nets. His cutting tool came out of his belt, and he started slicing through the thick ropes. The nets were old but strong, and each cut took effort. The alien's eyes followed Jake's every move, but it wasn't struggling anymore. It had given up. "Come on, stay with me," Jake said, even though he knew the alien couldn't understand him. He cut faster, his arms burning with the effort. One rope snapped, then another. The heavy debris started falling away, but there was still too much net wrapped around the creature's body. Jake looked at the alien's face. Its eyes were starting to close. No time left, he made a choice. Jake wrapped one arm around the alien's chest and used his other hand to cut the last major piece of net. The moment it broke free, Jake hit the emergency ascent button on his vest. The small tank of compressed air activated and they shot upward through the water like a rocket. The pressure change was dangerous. Jake knew that. They were going up too fast, but if they didn't get to the surface right now, the alien would die. He held on tight as they rushed through the dark water. They broke through the surface with a huge splash. Jake's emergency raft had automatically inflated, sensing his rapid ascent. He dragged the alien onto the raft, his arms shaking with effort. The creature was heavy, its wet fur making it even heavier. Jake rolled the alien onto its side and started pushing on its chest. He had studied the basic body structure of Coalition species during his training. The Lycarians had hearts in roughly the same place as humans, just a bit lower. He pushed down hard, counting in his head. Nothing happened. The alien's eyes stayed closed. Its mouth hung open. "Come on, don't die on me," Jake said. He pushed harder. Once, twice, 3 times. Still nothing. Jake was about to try again when the alien suddenly coughed. Water sprayed from its mouth, and its whole body shook. It coughed again and again, each time bringing up more water. Then it gasped, sucking in air. Its yellow eyes opened and locked onto Jake's face. "You're safe now," Jake said. His voice was shaking. "You're going to be okay." The alien just stared at him. Its body was still trembling and its dark fur was soaked and matted down. Jake could see its chest moving up and down as it breathed. The creature was alive. He had done it. Jake sat back on the raft, his own breathing heavy. His whole body felt weak now that the danger was over. The emergency beacon would bring the rescue boat soon. Everything was going to be fine. The alien kept staring at him. There was something in its eyes that Jake couldn't read. Intelligence, yes. The Lycarians were smart, everyone knew that. But there was something else too, something that made Jake feel uncomfortable, like the alien was looking inside him somehow. Then the alien's mouth opened. Jake expected it to make some kind of animal sound or maybe speak in its own language. What he didn't expect was what actually happened. "Thank you for saving my life, Jake Morrison." The voice that came out of the alien's mouth was Jake's voice. Not similar to his voice. Not close to his voice. It was exactly his voice. Every sound, every tone, even the slight roughness he got when he was tired. It was like listening to a recording of himself. Jake scrambled backward so fast he almost fell off the raft into the water. His heart was hammering in his chest. His hands were shaking. "What? How do you—" Jake couldn't finish the sentence. His mind couldn't process what had just happened. The alien slowly pushed itself up to a sitting position. Water dripped from its fur. When it spoke again, it was still using Jake's voice. "Please do not be afraid. I know this is shocking for you." "How are you doing that?" Jake's voice came out as a whisper. "How do you know my name?" The alien tilted its head, and Jake was struck by how human the gesture looked. "My species has an ability. A gift, some call it. A curse, others say. When a Lycarian is saved from death, when someone risks their life without any reason except kindness, something happens. A bond forms. A connection." "What kind of connection?" Jake asked. He was still pressed against the far edge of the raft. "I can hear your thoughts. Not all of them, only the surface ones. The ones you are thinking right now. I can access your memories, your way of speaking, your patterns of thought. And because of this, I speak as you speak. With your voice, your words, your manner." Jake felt sick. "You're reading my mind?" "In a way, yes, but only because you saved my life. The bond is not something I chose. It simply is. My people call it the resonance." The alien reached out slowly, carefully, like it was afraid Jake would jump into the water. "My name is Vector. I am a scout for the Coalition's 3rd Fleet. What you did for me, Jake Morrison, is considered sacred among my kind. You risked everything for a stranger. For an alien. You did not hesitate. You did not calculate the cost. You simply acted." In the distance, Jake could hear the sound of boat engines. The rescue team was coming. He looked at the alien, at Vector, and tried to understand what had just happened to his life. "How long does this resonance thing last?" Jake asked. Vector's ears dropped down, a gesture Jake somehow knew meant sadness. "Until the debt is repaid. Until I have saved your life in return, or until I have given you something of equal value to what you gave me." The rescue boat appeared on the horizon, its lights cutting through the darkness. Jake looked at Vector and realized that saving the alien's life had just changed everything. The question was, had he changed it for better or worse? Only time would tell. The rescue boat pulled up next to the raft within minutes. Jake and Vector were hauled aboard by the crew, who looked shocked to see a Lycarian with a human diver. Questions flew at Jake from all directions, but he barely heard them. His mind was still spinning from hearing his own voice come out of an alien's mouth. They were taken straight to the medical bay at the research station. The room was large and designed to handle both human and alien patients. Dr. Lisa Chen, the head medical researcher, arrived within minutes. She was a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "What happened out there?" Lisa asked, running a scanner over Jake's body. Jake explained the rescue while Lisa worked. Every few seconds, his eyes drifted to Vector, who sat on an examination table across the room. The alien was being checked by a Coalition medical officer, a tall being with too many arms and a face like a beetle. "And then it spoke in my voice," Jake finished. He knew how crazy it sounded. Lisa's eyes went wide. "It did what?" Before Jake could answer, Vector spoke up. "I can demonstrate if you wish, Dr. Chen." Everyone in the room froze. The voice was still Jake's voice coming from the alien's mouth. It was wrong in a way that made Jake's skin crawl, even though he knew it was supposed to happen. Lisa walked over to Vector slowly. "How is this possible? The Lycarians have been part of the Coalition for 200 years. No one has ever reported this ability before." Vector's ears flattened against his head. "Because it is rare. My people are proud, Dr. Chen. We are warriors, scouts, explorers. We do not often need rescuing, and when we do find ourselves in danger, we usually die before the resonance can form." "The resonance?" Lisa pulled out a different scanner and aimed it at Vector's head. the bond between the one who saves and the one who is saved. It is old, older than our written history. When a Lacarian is pulled from the edge of death by an act of pure selflessness, our minds open to the Savior. We can access their surface thoughts, their memories, their patterns of speech. Jake sat up on his examination table. For how long? Until the life debt is repaid, Vector said. Until I have balanced what you gave me. Lisa spent the next 2 hours running every test she could think of. She scanned both Jake and Vector, compared their brain activity, and asked hundreds of questions. By the end of it, Jake was exhausted. This is incredible, Lisa said, looking at her data. Your neural patterns are synchronizing. Not completely, but enough that you're sharing certain thought processes. It's like your minds are on the same frequency. Can you break it? Jake asked. He immediately felt guilty when Vector's ears drooped. I don't know, Lisa admitted. I'd need to study it more. But Jake, this might be more than just voice mimicry. According to these readings, you two are connected on a level we don't fully understand yet. Over the next 3 days, Jake learned what that connection meant. He would be working on something, and suddenly he would know that Vector was nearby. He could feel the alien's emotions like they were his own. Anger, sadness, curiosity, all of it bled through the bond. Vector followed him everywhere. Not in an obvious way, but Jake always knew he was there. On the 4th day, Jake finally confronted him. Why are you always around? Jake asked. They were in the station's cafeteria, and Jake had just noticed Vector sitting 3 tables away. Vector walked over, his claws clicking on the metal floor. When he spoke, he still used Jake's voice. The resonance pulls me to you. I cannot help it. Where you go, I am drawn to follow. That's going to make life difficult, Jake said. Yes, Vector agreed. But there is something I must tell you. Something important. And dangerous. Jake looked around the cafeteria. Several people were watching them, curious about the human and the alien who seemed to be friends now. Not here, Jake said. Follow me. He led Vector to one of the lower maintenance levels, a place where few people went. The halls were narrow and poorly lit, filled with the hum of machinery. When Jake was sure they were alone, he stopped. All right, what is it? Vector's yellow eyes glowed in the dim light. The Coalition lied about why we are here. The research stations, the ocean exploration, all of it is a cover for something else. Jake felt his stomach drop. What do you mean? We are not studying your oceans, Jake Morrison. We are mining them. There is a substance here, found only in Earth's deepest trenches. It is called resonance crystal, and it is the most valuable material in the known galaxy. So you're mining minerals. That doesn't sound so bad. Vector's growl made Jake step back. It is not just a mineral. The crystals form in response to your species, to human thought, human emotion, human consciousness. They grow because humans exist. And if the Coalition removes too many of them, it will affect your people. Affect us how? My people had our own crystals once, Vector said quietly. 200 years ago, the Coalition came to our world. They said they wanted to study our oceans too. They set up facilities, made promises, offered technology. We let them because we trusted them. We didn't understand what they were really doing until it was too late. Jake leaned against the wall. What happened? They took all of our crystals. Every last one. And when they were gone, we began to change. Slowly at first, so slowly that we didn't notice. Our bonds weakened. Pack structures that had lasted for thousands of years started falling apart. We became less emotional, less connected to each other. Now most Lycarians cannot form lasting relationships. We live alone, work alone, die alone. Our culture is dying, Jake. And it all started when the Coalition took our crystals. And you think they're doing the same thing to Earth? I know they are. I have seen the mining reports. The extraction schedules. Within 5 years, maybe less, your oceans will be stripped clean, and your species will begin to change just like mine did. Jake's mind was racing. Why are you telling me this? You're part of the Coalition. This is treason, isn't it? Vector moved closer. Because you saved my life without asking for anything in return. Because the resonance lets me see into your heart. And what I saw there was good. Because I cannot let what happened to my people happen to yours. Not when I have the power to warn you. What can we do? It's not like we can just ask them to stop. No, but we can expose them. We can show the world what they're really doing. If enough humans know the truth, the Coalition will have to stop. They cannot afford to be seen as conquerors and thieves. Their entire structure depends on the appearance of peaceful cooperation. Jake rubbed his face with both hands. This is insane. A week ago, my biggest worry was checking oxygen tanks. Now you're telling me there's a conspiracy to steal humanity's future. I know it is difficult to believe, Vector said, but I can prove it. I have access to the Coalition's secure databases. I can show you the mining operations, the extraction schedules, everything. And what happens to you if we do this? If we go public with this information? Vector was quiet for a moment. I will likely be arrested, possibly executed. The Coalition does not take kindly to those who reveal their secrets. Then why do it? Because you saved my life. Because the resonance has shown me that some things are worth dying for, and because someone must stand up and say no. Someone must be willing to pay the price for doing what is right. Jake looked at the alien standing in front of him. A week ago, Vector had been a stranger, just another alien working for the Coalition. Now because of one rescue, because of one moment of choice in the dark water, everything had changed. Where do we start? Jake asked. Vector's ears perked up. There is a secure computer terminal in the lower research lab. I can access the Coalition network from there, but we will need to be careful. If anyone discovers what we are doing before we have proof, they will stop us. When? Tonight. During the shift change when the halls are empty? Jake nodded slowly. All right. Tonight then. But Vector, if we do this, there's no going back. You understand that, right? Once we start down this path, everything changes. I understand, Vector said, still using Jake's voice. But Jake Morrison, some things have already changed. The moment you pulled me from the water, the moment the resonance formed, both our fates became linked. We walk this path together now, whether we wish to or not. Jake checked his watch. 4 hours until the shift change. 4 hours to decide if he was really going to go through with this. 4 hours to prepare for what might be the biggest mistake of his life, or the most important choice he would ever make. He looked at Vector and saw his own determination reflected in those yellow alien eyes. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The human who saved a life and the alien who refused to let that life be saved for nothing. The resonance had bound them together. Now they would see if that bond was strong enough to stand against an entire galactic coalition. The shift change happened at midnight. Jake waited in his quarters, watching the clock tick closer to the hour. His hands were sweating and his heart wouldn't stop racing. He was about to commit what the coalition would definitely call a crime. Maybe what Earth governments would call a crime too. A soft knock came at his door. Jake opened it to find Vector standing there, his dark fur blending into the shadows of the hallway. It is time, Vector said in Jake's voice. They moved through the station quietly. The halls were mostly empty, just a few tired workers heading to their quarters. No one paid attention to a diver and a Lycarian walking together. Since the rescue, people had gotten used to seeing them as a pair. The lower research lab was locked, but Vector produced a security card. Scout privileges, he explained. We are given access to most areas of Coalition facilities. Inside the lab was dark except for the glow of computer screens. Equipment hummed softly in the background. Vector went straight to a terminal in the corner and began typing with his clawed fingers. Jake stood watch at the door, his nerves getting worse with every passing second. How long will this take? Jake whispered. Not long. I know exactly where the files are stored. Vector's claws clicked against the keyboard faster. The Coalition is thorough in their record-keeping. They document everything. Jake watched as screens full of data began appearing. Charts, maps, extraction schedules. Even with his limited understanding, he could see the scope of the operation. Mining facilities at every major ocean trench. Hundreds of automated machines pulling crystals from the deep. Numbers showing how much had been extracted, how much remained, and projections for future mining. This is worse than you said, Jake muttered, looking at the data. Yes. The extraction rate has accelerated in the last 6 months. They are taking more than they originally planned. Vector pulled up another file. Look at this. These are the projections for human neural activity over the next decade. See how it declines? Jake stared at the graphs. They showed a steady drop in something called baseline neural complexity. What does that mean? It means that as the crystals disappear, human brain function will change. Not enough to be obvious at first. People will still be able to think, work, live their lives. But creativity will fade. Abstract thinking will become harder. Emotional connections will weaken. Within a generation, humanity will be fundamentally different. And they know this, Jake said. It wasn't a question. They know. They have seen it happen before. To my people, to the Kelthany, to the Vorum. Every species that had resonance crystals has been mined and changed. The Coalition calls it the price of joining galactic civilization. Jake felt sick. How many other species know about this? Some suspect. But the Coalition is very good at hiding the truth. They wait until the mining is almost complete, before anyone notices the changes. By then it is too late to stop. Vector copied files onto a data drive. This should be enough proof. Mining schedules, neural impact studies, historical records from other worlds. Everything we need to show Earth what is happening. Now what? Jake asked. Before Vector could answer, the lights in the lab suddenly came on. Jake spun around to see 3 figures standing in the doorway. They weren't human. They were Chitauri, the insect-like species that made up most of the Coalition security forces. Their compound eyes reflected the light in an unsettling way. "Scout Vector," one of them said, its voice clicking and buzzing. "You are accessing classified information without authorization. This is a violation of Coalition security protocols." Vector stood up slowly, placing himself between Jake and the security officers. "I am exercising my right to information transparency. These files concern a matter of life-debt. The resonance grants me certain privileges." "Not these privileges," the Chitauri said. "Step away from the terminal. Both of you are under arrest." Jake's mind raced. If they were arrested now, the data would be confiscated. No one would ever see the truth. "What exactly are we being arrested for?" "Unauthorized access to classified materials. Potential espionage. Conspiracy to damage Coalition operations." The Chitauri moved closer. "You will both be detained until a tribunal can be convened." Vector growled, a deep sound that made the Chitauri pause. "You would violate the law of life-debt? I am resonance-bound to this human. To separate us is to break sacred law." The 3 Chitauri looked at each other. Jake could see the hesitation in their movements. Apparently, even the Coalition had some laws they were afraid to break. "Then you will both be detained together," the lead Chitauri decided. "But detained you will be. The Council will determine what punishment is appropriate for your crimes." 2 more security officers appeared behind the first 3. These ones had weapons drawn, strange devices that glowed with a blue light. Jake knew they had no choice. They could fight and definitely lose, or they could go quietly and hope for a chance later. "Vector," Jake said quietly. "Do what they say." Vector's ears flattened, but he nodded. They were led out of the lab and through the station's halls. This time people did stop and stare. A human and a Lycarian being escorted by armed security was definitely worth noticing. They were taken to a detention area Jake hadn't known existed. The cells were designed for aquatic species, which meant they were partially flooded with water. Jake and Vector were placed in one together. At least they had gotten that much. The cell door closed with a heavy clang. Jake sat down on a raised platform that served as a bed, the water lapping at his boots. Vector paced back and forth, his fur still damp from the water. "I'm sorry," Vector said. "I did not expect them to discover us so quickly." "Not your fault," Jake said. "We knew this was risky, but now we are trapped. The data will be confiscated. No one will know the truth." Jake looked up at the alien. "Maybe. But we're not the only ones who suspect something's wrong, are we? You said some Coalition members had doubts. Some scientists and engineers." Vector stopped pacing. "Yes, there are others who question the mining operations. But they are scattered across different facilities, different worlds. They have no way to organize, no way to act. What about humans? Are there any humans working at the Coalition facilities who might have noticed something?" Vector thought for a moment. "There is a geologist named Kyle Sanders. He has been studying the crystal formations for months. He asked many questions about the patterns he was seeing. And there is a neurologist, Dr. Amy Park. She was researching the effects of the crystals on human brain development. The Coalition shut down her project 2 months ago. So there are people out there who already suspect something. They just don't have proof." "Yes, but how does that help us? We are locked in a cell." Jake smiled for the first time since their arrest. "Because you said the resonance works both ways. I can sense you and you can sense me. Can you sense other people too? People you've met before?" Vector's ears perked up. "Perhaps. I have never tried. The resonance is strongest with you because you saved my life. But there might be a way to reach out to others, to send impressions or emotions. Then try. Try to reach Kyle Sanders. Try to reach Dr. Park. Let them know we found proof. Let them know where to look." Vector sat down next to Jake. "It will be difficult, and I do not know if it will work. But I will try. The alien closed his eyes. Jake watched as Vector's breathing slowed and his body relaxed. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the sound of water moving against the cell walls. I found him, Vector said suddenly, his eyes still closed. Kyle Sanders. He is in the geology lab working late. I can sense his consciousness. Can you communicate with him? Not in words, but I can send feelings, impressions. I am showing him urgency, danger. I am pushing thoughts of the research lab, the computer terminal, the files we accessed. More minutes passed. Jake didn't dare move, afraid he might break Vector's concentration. Sweat was forming on the alien's fur, and his breathing had become labored. Whatever he was doing, it was taking a lot of effort. Finally, Vector opened his eyes. He understood. I felt his recognition, his curiosity. He is going to investigate. Will he know where to look? I sent him an image of the terminal, the file structure. He is intelligent. He will find it. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Now what? Now we wait. If Kyle Sanders finds the files and understands what they mean, he will act. He will tell others. The truth will spread. And if the coalition stops him too, Vector looked at Jake with those yellow eyes. Then we hope that someone else notices. We hope that the truth is too big to be contained. We hope that humanity is as resilient and stubborn as the coalition fears they are. They sat together in the cell as hours passed. Jake tried to sleep but couldn't. Every sound made him jump, expecting either rescue or worse punishment. Vector seemed to be meditating, his eyes closed and his breathing steady. As dawn approached, Jake heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Not the clicking steps of Chitauri, but human footsteps. The cell door opened, and a man in a security uniform stood there. He was young, maybe late 20s, with nervous eyes. Jake Morrison? The man asked. Yes. My name is Ben Foster. I work security here. Kyle Sanders sent me. He said you and the Lycarian found something important, something the coalition doesn't want anyone to see. Jake stood up quickly. You believe us? Kyle showed. Kyle led them to a small room hidden behind the storage area. Inside were computers, communication equipment, and piles of data drives. It looked like he had been preparing for this moment for a long time. I've been collecting evidence for 6 months, Kyle explained, pointing to his screens. Crystal formations that don't match natural patterns, mining schedules that make no sense for research, energy signatures that suggest heavy industrial equipment, not scientific instruments. But I never had access to the classified files, until now. He pulled up the data Vector had copied. Maps appeared on screen, showing mining sites all over the world. Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean, even the Arctic seas. Every major trench had coalition facilities above them. This is bigger than I thought, Kyle said quietly. They're not just taking crystals from one location. They're stripping the entire planet. Amy was looking at different files, her face getting paler with each screen. The neural impact studies are worse than anything I imagined. Look at this projection. Within 10 years, human creativity drops by 40%. Within 20 years, our ability to form strong emotional bonds decreases by 60%. Within a generation, we won't recognize ourselves. Can it be reversed? Jake asked. Amy shook her head. Not according to this data. Once the crystals are gone, the changes are permanent. The Lycarians have been trying to reverse their decline for 200 years with no success. Vector's ears drooped. It is true. We have tried everything. Medical treatments, genetic modifications, synthetic replacements for the crystals. Nothing works. Once the resonance is broken, it cannot be repaired. Nicole was on her communication device, typing quickly. I'm preparing messages for every major government on Earth. United States, China, Russia, European Union, everyone. They need to know what's happening in their territorial waters. The coalition will deny it, Ben said. They'll say the data is fake, that we're troublemakers spreading lies. That's why we need physical proof, Kyle said. Not just files and documents, but an actual crystal. Something we can show to scientists around the world. Something they can test and verify. Jake understood immediately. You want to go down to one of the mining sites and bring back a sample. It's the only way to prove this is real. We can release all the data we want, but without physical evidence, half the world will think it's a conspiracy theory. The mining sites are heavily guarded, Vector said. Automated defense systems, coalition security patrols. Getting in will be nearly impossible. Not impossible, Ben said. Difficult, but not impossible. I know the security schedules. There's a window during shift changes where the monitoring is minimal, Jake looked at the group. So what's the plan? We steal a submersible, dive to a mining site, grab a crystal, and get out before anyone notices? Basically, yes, Kyle said. I know it sounds crazy. It is crazy, Amy said. But it might be our only chance. Once the coalition realizes we have the classified files, they'll lock down everything. This window of opportunity won't last long. Nicole put down her communication device. I can buy you time. I'll start leaking parts of the data to news outlets. Small pieces, just enough to get attention, but not enough for the coalition to know how much we really have. While they're busy dealing with that, you get the crystal. Who goes on this dive? Jake asked. Everyone looked at him. You're the diver, Kyle said. You know the equipment, you know the procedures. And Vector has to go with you because of the resonance bond. The rest of us will provide support from the surface. Jake looked at Vector. Can Lycarians handle deep water pressure? We are adapted for aquatic environments. The pressure will not harm me, though I have never been to the depths you are describing. Then I guess we're going diving, Jake said. They spent the next few hours preparing. Ben used his security access to requisite a deep-sea submersible, claiming it was for routine maintenance. Kyle loaded equipment and tools they would need to extract a crystal sample. Amy prepared analysis kits so they could immediately test the crystal once it was recovered. Nicole started releasing the data, carefully choosing which files to leak first. News of strange mining operations in the ocean began appearing on websites and social media. Questions started being asked. The coalition would notice soon, but by then, hopefully it would be too late. As the sun set, Jake and Vector boarded the submersible. It was designed for 2 people, cramped and full of equipment. Ben would pilot the surface vessel, staying in constant communication. Kyle and Amy would monitor everything from their computers. Nicole would handle the public relations side, ready to flood the world with information the moment they had physical proof. Are you ready? Ben asked through the communication system. Jake looked at Vector. The alien nodded. Ready. The submersible detached from the surface vessel and began its descent. The water changed from blue to dark blue to black as they dropped deeper and deeper. Jake had made deep dives before, but never this deep. They were heading for the Mariana Trench, the deepest point in Earth's oceans. Passing 10,000 feet, Jake reported. The pressure outside was enormous, enough to crush a human body instantly. But the submersible was built to handle it, its thick walls and careful engineering keeping them safe. Vector was staring out the viewport, his yellow eyes wide. I have never seen such darkness. Gets darker the deeper you go, Jake said. We're heading down to about 35,000 feet, almost 7 miles below the surface. And the coalition has equipment operating at these depths? According to the files, yes. Automated mining machines that can withstand the pressure. They descended in silence for another hour. The monotony was broken only by Jake's regular depth reports and occasional communications from the surface. Finally, their instruments started picking up something. I'm getting readings, Jake said. Energy signatures ahead. Something big. The submersible's powerful lights cut through the darkness, and what they revealed made both of them gasp. The mining operation was enormous. Dozens of machines, each the size of a house, were methodically extracting crystals from the ocean floor. The crystals themselves glowed with a soft blue light, creating an eerie underwater landscape. It's beautiful, Vector whispered. It's dying, Jake replied, remembering what Vector had said before. Through the resonance, he could feel it too. A sadness, a sense of something precious being lost. There, Vector pointed. That formation on the right. It is smaller, less guarded by the machines. We can extract a sample from there. Jake maneuvered the submersible closer. The mining machines ignored them, programmed to only recognize and respond to specific threats. A small research submersible wasn't on their list. They positioned themselves next to the crystal formation Vector had indicated. Jake extended the mechanical arms of the submersible, carefully guiding them toward the crystals. The tools on the arms were designed for delicate work, perfect for extracting a small sample without damaging the formation. Steady, Vector said. Just a small piece. We do not need much. The mechanical arms cutting tool activated, and Jake carefully separated a piece of crystal about the size of his fist. The moment it broke free from the formation, pain shot through his head. Next to him, Vector gasped and clutched at his skull. Through the resonance, Jake felt everything. The crystal wasn't just a rock. It was connected to something vast, something that stretched across the entire ocean floor. Breaking even a small piece hurt like cutting a nerve. They feel this, Vector groaned. Every time they mine. The crystals feel pain. And no one told them to stop, Jake said through gritted teeth. The Coalition knew and they kept mining anyway. Alarms suddenly blared inside the submersible. Jake looked at his instruments and saw Coalition ships converging on their position from above. Somehow they had been detected. Ben, we have a problem. Jake spoke into the communication system. Coalition forces incoming. Multiple ships. We see them on radar. Ben's voice crackled back. Get out of there now. Grab the sample and ascend. Jake secured the crystal sample in a containment unit, while Vector watched the approaching ships on the monitoring screen. They are moving to intercept us. If we surface where we descended, they will capture us. Then we don't surface there, Jake said. He programmed new coordinates into the submersible's navigation system. We surfaced 20 miles east. Ben, can you meet us there? On our way, Ben confirmed. The ascent was much faster than the descent, but it was still agonizingly slow. Coalition ships circled above them like sharks. Jake pushed the submersible's engines as hard as he dared, but there was only so fast they could safely rise. They are deploying underwater drones, Vector said. They are trying to intercept us before we reach the surface. Jake saw them on his screen. Small, fast-moving objects heading straight for them. He adjusted course, weaving between underwater formations and trying to stay ahead of the pursuit. 15,000 feet, Jake reported. Still too deep for emergency ascent. One of the drones got close enough to attach something to their hull. A tracking device, Jake realized. Now the Coalition would know exactly where they were, no matter what course they took. Can you remove it? Vector asked. Not without stopping, and if we stop, they'll catch us. Then we must be faster than them. The aircraft carrier was enormous, bigger than anything Jake had seen up close. They were escorted aboard by serious-looking military personnel, who treated the crystal sample like it was the most important object in the world. Maybe it was. Admiral Patricia Cruz met them on the flight deck. She was a short woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much. Mr. Morrison, Scout Vector, on behalf of the United Nations Security Council, I want to thank you for what you've done, and I need to debrief you immediately. They were taken to a secure room below deck. Inside were officials from multiple governments, scientists, military officers, and representatives from various Earth organizations. News of the mining operation had spread like wildfire across the planet. Governments were demanding answers. People were protesting outside Coalition facilities. The world had woken up to what was being done to them. We need to verify the crystal is genuine, said Dr. Gerard Scott, a physicist from MIT. If it's real, if it has the properties described in the leaked files, then we have grounds to demand the Coalition cease all operations immediately. Amy had brought her analysis equipment. She and Dr. Scott set up a testing station right there in the meeting room. The crystal was placed under scanners, subjected to various energy fields and analyzed from every possible angle. Jake and Vector sat together in the corner while this happened. They hadn't slept in over 24 hours and exhaustion was setting in. Through the resonance, Jake could feel Vector's worry. What happens to you now? Jake asked quietly. I do not know, Vector replied, still using Jake's voice. I have betrayed the Coalition. Even if my people understand why I did it, the Coalition leadership will not forgive such an action. I may never be able to return home. You did the right thing. Yes, but the right thing often comes with a heavy price. Dr. Scott stood up from the testing station, his face pale. It's exactly as described in the files. The crystal resonates with human neural patterns. When I brought it near my head, I could feel it, like it was trying to connect with my thoughts. And look at this scan. He showed them an image on his screen. The crystal was glowing with patterns of light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with something. That pattern matches human brainwave activity, Dr. Scott said. The crystal is literally synchronized with human consciousness. And according to these readings, removing it from the ocean floor has already started a decay process. Within hours, it will be completely inert. So the crystals die when removed from their natural environment? Admiral Cruz asked. Worse than that. According to the data from the leak, when crystals die, they release a final pulse of energy. If the Coalition extracts all the crystals at once, the combined pulse could cause massive disruptions to human neural activity worldwide. Headaches, confusion, memory problems. It would last for weeks, maybe months. The room went quiet. Are they planning to do that? Someone asked. Kyle, who had been allowed to attend the meeting, pulled up more files on his tablet. According to their final extraction schedule, yes. In 3 months, they planned to remove all remaining crystals in one coordinated operation. They would have blamed the neural effects on some kind of solar flare or magnetic anomaly. By the time humans figured out what really happened, the coalition would be long gone. Admiral Cruz slammed her hand on the table. Then we shut them down now. All operations, all facilities. I want coalition vessels escorted out of Earth's waters immediately. It's not that simple, Nicole said. She had joined them on the carrier, still coordinating the information release. The coalition has powerful friends among Earth's business community, companies that have made deals for technology transfers, politicians who have accepted coalition funding. There will be resistance to any action against them. Then we make it public, Jake said. Everyone turned to look at him. Don't keep this in a government meeting room. Tell everyone. Show them the crystal. Show them the scans. Explain what was about to happen. Let people decide if they want the coalition to stay. Admiral Cruz considered this. You want us to broadcast this? Right now. Every channel, every platform. Make it impossible for anyone to claim they didn't know. The Admiral looked at the other officials in the room. Slowly, they began to nod. 20 minutes later, Jake and Vector were standing in front of cameras while the world watched. Jake had never been good at public speaking, but this was too important to mess up. He took a breath and began. My name is Jake Morrison. A week ago, I rescued an alien from drowning. His name is Vector, and he's a member of the Lycarian species. What happened next changed both of our lives and might have saved humanity's future. He explained everything, the resonance, the discovery of the mining operation, the leaked files, the dangerous dive to retrieve proof. Vector stood beside him, proof that humans and aliens could work together when it mattered. Dr. Scott demonstrated the crystal, showing its connection to human neural patterns. Amy explained the projected effects of crystal removal. Kyle presented the data showing the coalition's true intentions. Nicole detailed how governments and businesses had been complicit in hiding the truth. When they finished, Jake looked directly into the camera. The coalition says they came to Earth as friends. They said they wanted to study and learn, but what they really wanted was to take something from us, something we didn't even know we had, something that makes us human. Vector stepped forward. For the first time since the rescue, he spoke in his own voice instead of Jake's. The translation software converted his words to English. My people made the mistake of trusting too easily, Vector said. We let the coalition into our world, into our oceans, into our future. By the time we understood what was happening, we had already lost too much. Our bonds are broken. Our culture is fading. Our children grow up unable to feel the connections that once defined us. I came to Earth expecting to do my duty for the coalition. But then a human saved my life without asking for anything in return. He showed me what my people used to be before the crystals were taken. He showed me what humanity could lose if we don't act now. Vector looked at Jake. The resonance connected us, but friendship keeps us together. And that friendship made me realize that some truths are worth any price. The coalition must leave Earth, the mining must stop. Humanity deserves the chance we never got. The broadcast ended. For several long moments, no one in the room spoke. Then Admiral Cruz's communication device started buzzing, so did everyone else's. Messages were flooding in from around the world. People are taking to the streets, Nicole said, reading from her device. Protests outside every coalition facility. Governments are issuing statements demanding immediate withdrawal. Even some coalition member species are calling for investigations into mining practices. Over the next few days, the pressure became overwhelming. The coalition tried to deny the allegations, then tried to justify their actions, then finally agreed to negotiate. But by then, humanity had made its decision clear. The coalition was not welcome on Earth anymore. Jake watched from the carrier as coalition ships began leaving Earth's waters. Mining equipment was shut down. Facilities were dismantled. Within a week, the only coalition presence left on Earth was a small diplomatic mission, closely monitored by human authorities. The crystals began to recover. Scientists reported that the formations were growing again, spreading across the ocean floor. The damage wasn't permanent after all. Earth had been lucky. They had caught the theft in time. Jake returned to his diving job, but everything was different now. He was famous, though he didn't particularly enjoy the attention. More importantly, he was part of a new project, A human-led effort to study and protect the resonance crystals, making sure no one ever tried to mine them again. Vector stayed with him. The resonance bond had faded somewhat over the weeks, but it never completely disappeared. They could still sense each other, still feel strong emotions across distances. More than that, they had become true friends. One morning, Jake and Vector were preparing for a dive to check on crystal formations near the research station. The ocean was calm, the sun was shining, and for the first time in weeks, Jake felt at peace. "Do you regret it?" Jake asked as they checked their equipment. "Everything you gave up to help Earth?" Vector's ears twitched, and what Jake had learned was the Lycarian equivalent of a smile. "I regret nothing. The life debt was repaid the moment you risked everything to tell the truth. What remains now is not obligation. Then what is it? Choice. Friendship. The knowledge that sometimes one person's decision can change the fate of an entire world. You chose to save my life. I chose to save your species. And together we proved that doing the right thing is always worth the cost." Jake smiled. "Think your people will ever forgive you? Perhaps. Or perhaps not. But other Lycarians have started asking questions now. They want to know if their crystals can be restored. If there is a way to heal what was broken. Your actions have given my people hope that we might recover what we lost." They dove into the water together, descending into the blue depths. Below them, the crystal formations glowed softly, pulsing with life and energy. They were healing, growing stronger every day. Jake remembered something Vector had said during their first